Please let the minutes show that Mr. Olguin is not here. Please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of Mexico, as a symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures.
Entertain a motion for approval of agenda items.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Gomez, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Cordova. Any questions?
Executive session. Student identifiable information is the reason we have executive session, but the listing of the items should be descriptive, somewhat descriptive of the topic to be discussed. This is way too open, and it's impossible for any one of us to say that the conversation in the closed session pertained to that particular agenda item. If it is to identify, if it's related to student identifiable information in terms of its substance, that's an open session discussion. But if we're saying we're closing it because of student identifiable information, that is the reason to close it, but it's not sufficient as an agenda description of what is going to be discussed. This is like elementary board meeting preparation, and I don't understand how come 4 or 5 times in a row now we go through this exercise.
So what do you want to do there? Put student's name?
No, put the situation involved in a very general, like for instance, if there was an altercation at the high school, related to altercation at the high school. If there was a disciplinary action within a teacher, say related to classroom conduct or something like that. But student identifiable information, that's so universal and so nondescript. And every conference that I've attended to has made that very clear, that there has to be a descript item so that the discussion can be focused on that particular description. And that's true of every single session, every section that I've attended to related to closed sessions. I've only attended few. You, and especially between you and Frank Gomez, between you and Frank Cordova, each of you has spent over or around the vicinity of $200,000 attending conferences. We shouldn't be having these problems.
And I don't see where that's a problem with what we need to discuss on it. Any other comment? Call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Please let the minutes show that there was one opposed. Entertain a motion for approval of the minutes of June 15th.
So move.
Motion by Mr. Cordova, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Gomez. Any corrections to minutes?
There's, in the discussion, the lengthy discussion is listed about update on unfinished business. It goes into the discussion about the proposals for contractor. And my position, as well as Mr. Esqueda's position, was that we should be listing we should be posting the request for proposals for a contractor to assist in the recruitment efforts for a superintendent, and that's not here. And that was clearly stated, I don't know how many times.
So that needs to be corrected on the minutes. Okay. Any other thing?
And on the executive session, at the end of it, I had the objection to the vote to be described as being that the vote that was taken was listed under executive session, not under open agenda. And that again wasn't listed.
Okay. Any other thing?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Entertain a motion for approval of the minutes of July 12th. Motion by Mr. Guadiana. Second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Gomez. Any corrections to those minutes?
Yes, again, on the donation from Freeport McMoran, I voted yes on both of those counts.
There was one that you voted no on.
It was, I don't remember voting. I voted no on.
No, no, no.
If we could go back to the video of that and find that correction, because I believe I voted yes on both of those. I especially like the fact that they were not discretionary.
Yeah, there was one that you voted no.
So
But we will go back and look.
that would be appreciated.
Okay, Sandy? Any other corrections? Call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Yearly board resolution, Joyce?
No, that was the one we did last time.
There was a what?
That was the one that we did last meeting?
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Move us to item 3 then. Update on unfinished business.
Yes, sir. Board President, members of the board, committee members, I'd like to introduce Mr. Rob Price from ASA Architects. He's going to give us a little bit of an update on what we've been working on, and he has some drawings and some things also that he'd like to be able to present to you.
So, where would you guys like?
Where?
The camera gets you from anywhere.
Okay. So, I've been asked to come and give an update about the practice gym.
You know, if you could stand up like about right over here, it'd probably be good visible there. Maybe not.
Maybe there.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't need to be there, so you can come to me.
So, the last time I was in front of you guys, I believe was virtually, sometime at the end of February or the 1st of March, and I was here to present schematic design of the new practice gym, which was a site plan, floor plan, elevations. Since then, we've moved the project forward. Architecturally, we've completed design development drawings, and we've moved into construction documents. We're about 75% with those, complete with those. We have obtained, so the district issued a PO for Geotechnical Reports, which we received about 30 days ago. And we've began structural drawings, which are also about 60% complete. About 2 weeks ago, we obtained a survey from a local surveyor, and the civil engineer is working through construction documents for the civil engineering portion of the package. At the same time that we've started our structural engineer, we started our MP&E engineers, and we're about 60% complete with those drawings. So,
What's in P?
mechanical, plumbing, electrical. So the basic engineering disciplines, structural, mechanical, plumbing, electrical, they've all commenced. They're about 60% complete. The architectural construction documents are about 75% complete. The civil is sort of bringing up the rear because we just got the survey a couple of weeks ago, but she's making progress. It's a local civil engineer. You guys probably know her, Pam Weber. That's who's doing the civil package. And it's all progressing nicely. The Before this meeting, I met with the staff, George, Terry, the interim superintendent, and I gave them an update. The biggest challenge for the project is cost and when should we bid this project. As you guys have probably heard in the news, I mean, it's all over the world. We've got cost challenges in construction. Since the pandemic started, wood products are up 377%. Steel's up at an exceedingly high cost. So what I've suggested is, based on the opinions I've read from economic leaders in the industry, these costs are anticipated to level out somewhere between the next 6 months and the end of next year. That's a pretty big window. But I've suggested that the worst thing to do is to bid tomorrow. I don't think we want to do that. I think what we want to do is continue to finish this package, which will be done in the next 30 to 45 days. We should continue to review market costs and see how things are going, and bid somewhere around November this year. Whether it ends up being October, November, December, I don't know. We're going to watch and give you the best advice that we can. It's a moving target right now. I don't know if you guys have any questions about market cost, if you've watched the news, if you have concerns, don't have concerns. There are a variety of different opinions about where this is heading. The biggest thing I can tell you is it's real. Everything we've bid of any consequence in the last, 4, 5, 6 months has been 20 to 25% above projected costs and above budgets. And you guys know as well as I do in New Mexico, where we're primarily doing projects with public money, it's increasingly difficult to get all that you need to get when costs are escalating at the rate that they are. And it's proving out to be about a 20 to 25% increase market-wide. Primarily, it's in 3 categories. Wood, which I'm sure if you've gone to a Lowe's or a Home Depot lately, you've seen that for yourself. I mean, a sheet of plywood that was $12 9 months ago was 50-something bucks now. OSB, MDF, plywood, all the above, 2x4s, 2x6s, it's out of control. We have very little wood in this building. We're using plywood around the perimeter of the gym to keep the exposed metal building insulation from being just ripped apart with athletic competition going on. But beyond that, there's not really any wood in the building. Steel has gone up, as I'm sure you've heard. Number of issues with steel. One of the biggest problems is you've got big cargo ships full of steel sitting in China ports. Can't get here. Mostly pandemic-related reasons. But on top of that, we've got supply chain issues related to workforce shortages in our own country. Unfortunately, the majority of our building is metal, and it's going to have some impact on it. And then there's petroleum-based products, which is, for the most part, roof. But it gets into some plastic categories, toilet partitions, and those kinds of things. The steel is the biggest thing that's going to affect your building. Without getting into a big economic lecture, you guys know what happens as wood increases and steel increases and petroleum-based products increase. Everybody wants a raise. There's some artificial increase that goes too. I mean, if the wood and the steel and the petroleum-based products are getting a raise, well, the so-and-so guy wants a raise too. So there's artificial increases. The last thing you want to do is stop, because it's going to level off, but it's going to continue to stay in the range that it is now. We're not going back to pre-pandemic pricing. I don't think. That's an opinion. In 35 years of architectural practice, I've never seen a time when we reel back in 12 months ago costs. It doesn't happen. People get comfortable in their new positioning economically, and they want to stay there. So the project's moving smoothly. We're completing the documents. The challenge is, when do we bid? I would say not before the end of October or the first of November of this year, but before we just jump out on the street and get a price, we need to review the market and see what's going on. and if it should be later, we should move at a later point. At the end of the day, it doesn't cost you anything to go get a price other than a $400 advertisement. I mean, there's no more of my time involved. Your contractors don't get paid to give you a price, but you don't want to hit the street too many times either. It eliminates competition is what happens. When you're bidding a project, prices are very confidential. Subcontractors take providing a price very seriously to contractors. 5 minutes after we read out publicly the bid results, though, all the contractors know what the bottom dollar cost is, and now everybody's playing the game of how do I get the job and maybe get a little bit more than the bottom cost last time. So the thing you are sacrificing is potentially competitive spirit. So we don't want to get costs just to be getting the costs. If you guys have any questions, any concerns about the information I'm giving you?
I guess the only thing that I have is, do we have a deadline, Joyce, for this, to spend this money, or George? We do have a deadline?
I don't know what it is.
We have the money in the Finance Authority, and it does expire to sit in the Finance Authority on December 31st of this year. If we draw it down and we put it in our bank, we can continue to earn interest on that and have the money available when we do have the project. So we do have an option, even though that it did expire and it got an extension to sit in NMFA, because NMFA is obviously going to give us better interest rates than we would have gotten at the regular bank.
I have a question, regarding what we had talked about last time in terms of possibility of putting solar panels and changing the orientation of the building so the slope would be towards the south of the roof.
I don't remember our conversation about the solar panels. In terms of the orientation of the building, the orientation that it's at now is the best orientation to try to fit a future building on the site. So initially, we were trying to have 2 courts here for a variety of reasons. And it was a bigger gym. It was a double court gym, for lack of a different description. And the way it's oriented on the site now allows 2 buildings side by side. If you want to do, you don't have the money now to do 2 courts. You can do a future court side by side with this building. And so there were 2 or 3, I don't remember all the pros and cons and ins and outs, but there was a study of an orientation, 2 different orientations, and the one we have now is the direction that was concluded, which is
South, north to south.
so there was another study with them going this way. It created some problems with parking and a variety of things. I don't remember what all the issues were, but yeah, that was back in January or February.
That was actually
reviewed.
Mr. Cordova that brought up the suggestion of the solar panels, and
Okay.
I would hope it still stays in consideration. I can't imagine doubling the size of that and having that as far away from the main building to be very practical either.
As far away from
The main campus.
the main campus building.
Yeah,
Yeah. This is the site that's been chosen for it.
yeah, because
If you guys have a closer site, we
the
could
tennis
put it
court
there.
area was ruled out because of
What was it ruled out? The tennis court area. We did study putting it there at one point. There's an incredible amount of earthwork to be done in demoing the tennis courts. I suspect that had something to do with that.
The cost of it did also, and then
Yeah.
there was when we revisited, with the previous superintendent, he shied away from it because of the cost.
So this is the current site behind the football field, across from the site. Well, you guys know what this is. Between the
Yeah.
football field and the
Yeah,
softball field.
quite a ways away.
I can tell you the cost to put it by the tennis courts would be increasingly more than this.
Percentage?
Oh, I don't know. It's been studied, and it was more expensive. One of the challenges is removing the tennis courts. I mean, you can't build on top of those tennis court surfaces. They have to be removed.
And it would just be the area in which the building is going to be constructed, correct?
True. But there's some accessibility challenges over there. It's up on a hill, so to speak. This is a much more flat surface.
My concern is student safety.
Sure.
And so the cost of that is certainly a consideration, but does it outweigh the safety?
Yeah, that's something for you guys to consider. I'd be happy to have your civil engineer relocated to that position if that's where you want to put it.
That's not my call. That would be something we'd have to take a look at and have recommendations.
Yeah, if you guys want to bring that under reconsideration, I mean, it can go there. No reason for it not to, other than cost and, all the things we've talked about. If you feel like safety bears out better on that site, I mean, I'm with you guys, cost shouldn't overshadow safety. If you feel like it's a more safe, more better location, we'll put it there.
And it has the potential for expansion as well.
It does, yeah. More potential for expansion because it's a bigger site. But you can put 2 courts on this site. But they're tight. Yeah, they are. But that's a decision for you guys to make. I mean, there's nothing architecturally superior about either of them. It does come down to cost. The other site is more expensive, primarily due to the height. It's on a hill, so there's ramps and stuff to deal with for accessibility and tennis court removal.
Yeah. The north part of the tennis courts is on double down.
It is the back side of it. Yeah. There's a if you put it far enough back off the road, which is closer to the building, which is where we had it, it's the most convenient place. And there is a portion of it that's flat enough that it's not as flat as this, but it's not when you drive by it's not as though it's on a 12-foot high hill as some of it is. But something for you guys to consider. Yeah, absolutely. If you wish to reconsider the location, we're happy to move it. I will say that based on the approval of this site initially, the civil engineer is underway. We got the survey. It takes a while to get a survey. It took about 75 days to get the survey from the local surveyor, just because he's busy. Man, getting a survey in this area is extremely difficult. It takes 60 to 90 days. So their time is of consideration, not the most prioritized consideration, but it is a consideration. And if you want to relocate it in position, I need to let the civil engineer know so she can quit working on this side. Any other questions?
I have a question, again, George Esqueda. In regards to the current phase that you're in, what's your current opinion of probable construction cost, and how does that relate to the current budget or remaining funds from the bond?
So, as I recall, George, tell me if I get this wrong, as I recall, the budget was $1.2 million. That's the total project budget. We've removed from that my fee and other miscellaneous costs for testing, surveys, etc. We've got a little over $1 million to build this building. Initial, based on cost estimates from last September or so, it was anticipated, based on the costs that were arrived at when we were studying the double court option. We felt like we could fit this building within that budget. There's no chance you can do that now at the current cost rate.
Yes,
We've got to wait for things to level off. That's why we need to keep our eye on the market. If you were to bid it today, it'll be double that.
Yeah, well, that was my question. At today's unit prices, taking into account a contingency, what you're thinking it's over $2 million?
So to be honest with everybody in this room, I can't tell you right now. It's moving so fast and it's so volatile. I genuinely cannot tell you. My guess is, based on what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing, what bids of other projects are coming in as, it's definitely over your budget. Whether it's 2 times, 1.5 times, honestly, I don't know. I just don't know.
And one of the things that we were looking at also, and we visited about it, Price and I, is that contractors are giving you a price on things, but some of them are only saying it's good for 48 hours. You want to move on things, or they're pulling away. They're not giving you like they used to. They used to give you 60 days. They give you a price and they say, it's good for 60 days. Get a PO going and stuff like that. Right now, we can't turn things around quick enough before it increases on us. So that's where we're at right now on that also.
No, I certainly experienced that as well.
The closest thing I can compare it to is the following. So we're doing a bus maintenance facility in Cloudcroft. It's got, it's a 5,000 square foot building. It's 2 maintenance bays, one with, it's not a gymnasium, but it's still out of school. It's a metal building. There's some comparisons. It has 2 maintenance bays, one with a pit, one without a pit, office, a couple of restrooms, some tool storage, and another small room. Maybe it's for oil, lube, that kind of stuff, equipment. It has a wash bay. The site's more complicated than this. There's not a killing thing in Cloudcroft that's flat, any of you that have ever been there. It's not nearly as simple as this site is. So it's got a lot of grading work to be done. It was initially budgeted as and cost confirmed with a contractor at $1.4 million. When the contractor checked it in March, it was $1.8 million. When it was bid so it was done through CES, he put it out on the street for competitive bids from the subcontractor market, I think 45 to 60 days ago. It bid at $2.5 million. It's since been value engineered back down to $2 million. So it went from in a matter of 5 months, it went from 1.4 million to 1.8 million to 2.5 million back to 2 million. So ultimately what that increase is 30%, which is where the market consistently shows itself to be. That means if we were to bid this, I said it could be double. 1.1 million, is it 2? Maybe. Is it 1.9, 1.8? I don't know. But by the time we value engineer it and we start backing down back to the budget, as close as you'd probably get today, would be a 30% increase, which means your $1.1 million budget is trying to buy a $1.5 million building. That's the importance of monitoring the market and watch these costs level. What I'm hoping is we don't just level out where we are and it's 1.5 million. I'm hoping there's a little bit of dip in that leveling. What I hope happens for your sake, all of my clients' sakes, is we get our supply chain filled back up so we're not having increased costs because of supply chain issues, which means demand needs to stay where it's at. Everybody's got to get back to work and we've got to fill the supply chain up so you're not, it's basic supply and demand economics so that you're not overpaying. Y'all remember the toilet paper problem, right? It's the same supply and demand problem. Remember when toilet paper was $10 for a pack of 4?
Just stop using it.
Yeah, there you go. Same problem. So it's a supply and demand economic issue. So I hope everybody gets back to work, the supply chain gets filled back up, and we don't have cost increases based on shortage of goods. I hope that around the end of the year, what usually happens is, the other problem you've got is projects have backed up because during this pandemic, everything was moving so slowly. What usually happens is towards the end of the year, things tail off and there's not a lot going on until we shoot off into the new year. Things are just busy all over the place right now. I hope it tails off so that you can get the benefit of that. So those things combined with, normal market forces, I'm hoping it doesn't just level out because you're sitting on a $1.5 million bill. I hope we get a tail off on top of leveling out so you can be in a better position to buy your building. It's all wishful thinking though, and there's no guarantees from me. I'm not building it, but I know what's going on. And this thing in Cloudcroft is as close of an example as I can give you for scale. Now your building's twice as big as this thing in Cloudcroft, but it's got a complicated site. It's got a wash bay. There's some other things to go with it. So we've got to find the most opportune time to bid it. See where we are. There's no guarantees.
Pent-up demand and limited supply, it's not going to be soon.
That's why the window. So all the things I've read online, when I say things I've read, so all of your big national organizations that deal in this industry, the construction industry, they have economists. The AGC, the Association of General Contractors, they have economists. The wood lumber industry, they have economists. You read stuff from all these guys, they're leading economic experts in their industry. From one opinion to the other, that window that you just spoke of is 18 months long. It's running from now until the end of next year. The most recent thing I read, so demand is coming down, supply chain is filling up in the wood industry. So lack of supply isn't what it was 2 months ago. Demand is coming down. Okay. Well, so why isn't everything going down? A couple of reasons. First, contractors, they bought the stuff not all the way high, but a little bit high. So now they got all the supply and they're holding you hostage. That's some of what's going on in the construction industry. I wouldn't suggest that, that's not a local hammer and a truck contractor kind of game. That's a multi-billion-dollar contractor kind of game. But it's being played out there. So we've got to wait for all those things to run their course. It's pent-up demand, as you said, but it's held hostage supply. What there was of it, all the big contractors bought it all up. And it works like gas too, to a large extent. So when you pay $2.89 at the pump, and you go, wait a minute, I hear we're on a decline. Well, that's because you're paying price at the pump for oil that was bought 60 days ago. Same kind. So lumber and other construction products are commodities, just like fuel and oranges and bananas and all those kinds of things are. They run the same kind of course. So we got to let some of this take its course.
Yeah, I was visiting with a gentleman that's building a house out there close to where I live, and right now he's on hold because he can't get the windows, 7 windows for his house, and he's been waiting for 2 months.
Yeah.
And there's still no sign of when they're going to do it.
So there are, in addition to price increases, there are shortages, and that's a real thing too. So I had a kickoff meeting. So we did a roof project in Tularosa schools, to their high school gym and their elementary cafeteria. We bid the job in April. We selected a contractor. We had a kickoff meeting the week before Memorial Day to let the contractor know, okay, the contract has been executed. It's time for you to start work. We'd like to start work the day after Memorial Day, which is fairly norm for school construction. We need you to finish this roof during the course of the summer so that when school starts the second week of August, we don't have roofing going on at these 2 buildings. And the contractor said, after I said all that, the contractor said, that's awesome, that's what we normally do. I brought the roofer with me today to share some information with you. Okay, Mr. Roofer, what's the information? Well, first of all, I can't get roofing until the end of August. Why not? Everything I just said to y'all, supply chain, economics, we don't have roofing. Okay, Mr. Roofer, I've heard that we're also experiencing price increases in the industry, so are you going to get that roofing at the end of August when we wish we were finished? Are you going to get it at the same price you just bid about 30 days ago? He said, no. I said, what are you going to get it at? He said, I pleaded with my supplier to tell me, and they told me it'll be what it is. And he said, I said to them, man, I can't go to my customers and tell them it's just gonna be what it is. You've got to give me a window to be able to explain this to everybody. The roof supplier, Carlisle, and you guys know there's only actually two makers of roofing, Firestone and Carlisle. That's who makes all the membrane roof in the world, basically. They said, well, plan on at least a 10% increase. So we're getting our roofing material. Let's see, we're getting it in 3 weeks, I think. Yeah, middle to third week of August. And we're not sure what it's going to increase to. We hadn't had that conversation. So not only are there shortages, the biggest challenge a big challenge is picking a time to bid. A bigger challenge is, while all this is going on, and we discussed this in our meeting before this one, is let's say we bid it, and let's say we get a successful price, and you go, yay, we can afford that, and we award a contractor, and we get out there and get started, and we get some concrete in the ground, and they go, oh man, it's going to be 17 weeks before we get steel. Okay, we'll wait, and it's going to cost 15% more. Wait a minute, we don't have 15% more. What do we do? You need to come up with 15% more. So there's normally during a construction project, if we bid the project on the street, we get a price from the contractor, and he gets on the job and tries to raise the price, we'd all whip him and go, no, that's not how we do this. All that leverage is out the window because these are uncontrollable factors. So the worst thing you can do is get a successful price, get on the job, and then face some increases to pay for something you don't have money in coffers for. So it's sort of a double-edged sword. I know none of that's good news. It's just the news. Do you guys have any questions? Other concerns I hadn't covered? Anybody want to throw some stuff at me?
Well, I have a question. This is more directed to the board. So, hearing what Mr. Price is saying, that you have a project that exceeds the current budget, what is the plan? And then, understanding that, again, picking a good time to put it out to bid is an unknown. Is there a plan to get this constructed, realizing that it is over budget?
So my recommendation initially is this is what you want. This is half of what you wanted to begin with. We've already cut it down from a double core to a single core. Let's not just initially jump in and reduce it even further. The first recommendation I'm making is that we monitor the market and see what the best opportune time to jump into the market is. The second, so that's game plan B. Game plan A would be, let's finish, let's bid it, let's get our price and budget, let's build it. That's not going to work, I can tell you. Game plan B would be to monitor the market and see if there's an opportune time to enter the market. Before we know what to scale it back to, we need to see what that price is. So I don't suggest we scale back before we know what that market price is. Once we do bid it and we know what the price is, if it indeed is over budget, as I suspect it will be, that's simply to prepare you all to know that. If it is indeed over budget, the plan C is to value engineer it to get back into budget. What will that entail? I don't know. It depends on what that price overage is. If we're $200,000 over budget, well, that requires one approach. If it's $4 million over budget, well, that's something else, which is unlikely.
How about a plan D?
Okay.
Monitoring it, putting it out to bid prior to the end of the year, receiving bids, and then realizing that the first week in December, everybody from this region gets together with the legislators through the prospectors group, basically taking their wishes and their wants that'll go to the legislature in 2022. So at least if you bid it, you receive prices, you have a better idea of what the cost may be, and then in December you present that to your local representatives, your senator, and then you put that on your ICAP and put it on your wish list come the 2022 legislative session. So at least that gets you a little closer. And because right now, I don't know if you guys have $250,000, $500,000 in your pocket, but at least going that route, it shows that you have a shovel-ready project. You've bid it, you've done some due diligence, and maybe the state can help you out with some capital outlay dollars. Again, what that does, though, it takes away from other projects you may have, but at least you have a project that you've already invested X amount of dollars in that shows that, hey, this is a priority of the Cobre School District, and hopefully they would come through for you guys. So that could be a plan D as well.
Yes, I would say that as a plan D1, and D 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 would be any other ways you could raise additional capital.
Well, as of right now, we have already visited with a few of them and working them up right now, but see where it goes.
And yeah, I would say while monitoring the market, if there is a time period within which having a price is useful to you in that capacity or a similar capacity, whether it's not the most opportune time or not, we enter the market and get a price anyway, so you have it as information. At some point you need to know what you've heard me, and I'm all over the place because I don't know. At some point you need to know, as a bona fide price from a contractor, what will somebody build this building for? You need to know that at some point, and not just guess and wish and mind. At some point we got to jump in and get a price, and then you'll know. And there's some expectation of being able to value engineer that back towards the budget, but depending on what that overage is, it might or might not could be brought completely within budget. But look, you guys are not the only client that I have. You're definitely not the only client in the state of New Mexico or the country of the United States or the global earth that's having this problem. This is a global problem right now. Prices have escalated beyond imagining what they would have. I mean, you got some, normal inflation year to year is 5%. And sometimes you don't even see it. It's sawdust. It's just in the air. Sometimes it can be 3%. Well, all of those numbers are less than what taxes cost in this state at 8%, give or take. Yeah, depending on where you're at. Well, so anything else I can add? That's a lot to digest.
I can add a question related to how the project became that it would be 2 buildings as opposed to 1. I know that we had talked about, since it's going to be tight space with just the basketball gyms, that we could add some space for storage of the wrestling equipment, like the mats. But I've never heard that we would actually add another building.
So it could be.
No, that's something that he just brought up, the
So
way
I
that the
brought it
building
up.
is set, that we could add to it.
We never planned on.
We never planned 2 buildings.
Okay.
Yeah, so what I said in our schematic design meeting was remember now, this roof slopes that way and slopes this way. You could add wrestling mat and wrestling space on it. Think of it as a lean-to off of this roof that comes out some distance.
Yeah.
You can do that. This is a 20-foot eve height for basketball. You could add a 3 and
not lower.
Yeah, at a 3-in-1 pitch, you could go this way for some distance and add that. It would be difficult to add a second court by tying onto this building, because then you get converging roofs like this.
Yeah. And
So the purpose of illustrating those 2 buildings is to simply acknowledge that that's not ideal. You would need to separate them.
But also, we're constrained to what it is we said we were going to do with them. And that was not something that we represented that we were going to do as twice the size of that. So I think the adding on of the space for storage is within what we had intended to do.
So
not going farther than that.
So the double gym initially, as I recall, was not actually 2 gyms. I mean, it wasn't actually 2 basketball courts. It was 2 surfaces to represent. You've got basketball volleyball, you got wrestling, you got a number of activities going on at once, where at this point, you've got one surface and you're trying to do all those activities in a scheduling kind of way on one surface. So when I say basketball courts, I realize from your bond and funding perspective, yeah, it's not really 2 basketball courts. It's relatively the size of 2 basketball courts. It's not all basketball. There's gym, I mean, there's wrestling, there's volleyball, basketball.
Yeah, it can be multi-use, that's
Yeah.
certainly the case.
So right now, what you've got is a single area that's the size of 1 basketball court. That's what we're building.
What was the size of 2 basketball courts?
Originally.
So now we've gone to
What it's scaled back to for
That's been
cost.
scaled back for over a year
Yeah.
because of the price.
The last time we had the presentation, it had 2 basketball courts.
It was this. It was this. One now with a future,
Go
with
back
a
and
future
look at what I
possibility.
have from the presentation, and I'm pretty sure it's 2.
It's that.
Okay. I'll take a look, and if I find something else, I'll send it up.
Okay. There may be something that's confused that conversation. What I showed you guys in February was this. I'm really confident about that because before I came in here this evening, I looked to see what all I told you guys. I don't want to come in here and tell you a bunch of stuff different from last time. So on February 27th, give or take, the conversation we had was on this site plan and that floor plan. And how much we talked about wrestling and volleyball and gym and 1 court and 2 courts, I don't remember.
Can you see that?
Sure. That's what it is right now. It's 1 basketball court with restrooms, a storage room, a utility room.
But this was so that they could play in 2 courts, correct?
And that, maybe that was the
That's-
part of the
that's-
conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's side goals that allow, and we just, George and I had the same conversation this afternoon about volleyball, putting in 2 sets of sleeves so we can do the exact same thing with volleyball. Set it up for volleyball and, instead of volleyball 1 time in this direction, it's 2 times in this direction. Same with basketball. Primarily, in a legitimate sized court, you got 1 directional plane, or 2 directional plane on 1 court. You could go, everybody who's played basketball knows what that is, though. That's a condensed
Yeah.
practice version.
Okay, that's all right. That's all right.
That might be.
Yeah, that's all right.
Okay. Anything else I can add?
No, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and keeping us up to date on it, and we'll continue to work on it. And
So our direction at the moment, unless you guys change that with some conversation you have after I leave, is we're continuing to work through developing these plans. In the next 45 days or so, they're going to be at a point of completion or almost completion, with us starting to think about what kind of dates do we put in bid forms and invitation to bids and those kinds of things, and monitoring the market. If you guys discuss wanting to change sites, let me know. There's some ramifications to that. Nothing we can't handle, but
Well, I think
So-
that another reason that we decided on that one is because there's all the majority of the plumbing systems is already nearby.
utilities.
Yeah,
Access to utilities. Now, not the
not just the plumbing, but the whole utility.
gas, electric. Not to shade that conversation, it's not as though you couldn't get access on the other site, but the primary, as I recall, the primary utilities on that site are out at the street, and the best location for the building's at the back of the site, so you got a pretty good travel distance to get from the street to the back of the tennis court site. And utilities are a big part of the cost here on a project like this. Okay. Anything else? Anything else you want me to throw
Never
over?
go. Thank you.
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it.
Look forward to continuing to work with you guys.
Thank you.
Moves us to public input in reference to our agenda. Did you have something in reference to our agenda, Mr.?
I have,
Esqueda.
yes, again, George Esqueda for the record. I actually have two items for public input that pertain to the agenda. The first one pertains to policy number 137, which is titled Board Meetings, Order of Business. In reviewing that policy, I didn't, it lists basically the order of the agenda. It has the items for two places for public input. But within that policy, I didn't see where it states that public input should be limited to 3 minutes. Again, that's in policy 137. So my question is, where did, because I've actually brought it up in the past, or it was brought up to me when I was making a presentation under public input, that a past employee of the district brought it up during the meeting if there was a limit on public input. And I believe you, Mr. Sepulveda, as board president, indicated that there was no limitation at that point in time. So now it's on today's agenda, it's appearing, and I was just wondering who made the decision and what the justification or reasoning behind that was. So that's item number one. So again, question and see if I can receive an answer or clarification on that.
The question on the 3 minute thing, I know has been there for quite a few years. And I don't know if it was in policy or if it's just something that the board decided on, but this was decided way back when Vicky and Richard and Corina were on the board with us. So that's been several years ago that they said let's limit that way. But now, like I said, I don't know if that is in policy or there was something that just the board voted on to do that.
Okay, well, I guess my question is, why back when I was making a presentation and asked her during public input, and I'm pretty sure you guys all remember, somebody spoke up and asked, well, isn't there a limit? And the answer at that time was no. And again, realizing that we're all human, we make mistakes, we can't remember everything, but it should have at least been put out to the public that, hey, moving forward, we're gonna limit public input to 3 minutes rather than it being unilaterally imposed from one meeting to the next. So that again, that's just my question.
If I could respond to that as well. The policy does not have 3 minute mentioned in it at all. There's no time limit mentioned in the policy. The practice may have occurred some time ago, but by following the rules is an interesting concept. If it were to be added to the policy, it would be brought forth as a policy change, and it would have a public reading of two public readings. None of that has occurred. This is a unilateral change that somebody made on their own mind without consulting the board. It has not come through the full board, and we have not made any assertion that there should be any limit. It's like you said, a unilateral decision made outside of a board framework.
So this is going to be the policy or the procedure moving forward, that it's going to be limited to 3 minutes per agenda item, or in total? Like for me, if I'm going to speak to 2 items, do I got 3 minutes total for both items, or do I got 3 minutes per item?
No, I think the way that we said it was back then, it was 3 minutes per item.
Okay.
Because like if you have 2 items, well, now you got
It's
2 different things.
It's still violating the rule of altering the policy without public input and public notification. Unilaterally, we can't make that decision to impose a time limit. That has to go through a policy that should be put into that policy, a public reading of it twice, and then it goes into effect. Doing it now and maintaining it now because it's here in front of us would be just perpetuating the wrong.
So again, I just want to, again, policy 137, if you wouldn't mind revisiting that, and you can see that there is no limitation on public input. So again, that's item number 1. So again, if you could, and then maybe have Mrs. Varela email me with clarification or justification or a better explanation, I'd certainly appreciate it. So that's agenda item number 1. In regards to your executive session, under policy 130, which is meetings of the board / open meetings resolution, I'll have to agree with Mr. Ludiana on that. Again, this pertains to executive session. Item 8 of policy 130, as I'll read it directly, the authority for the closure and the subjects to be discussed shall be stated with reasonable, and excuse me, I may butcher this word, is specificity in the motion for closure, and the vote on the closure of each individual member shall be recorded in the minutes. So again, I as well question, because when I looked at the agenda this morning, I could not tell what you guys are going to be talking about in executive session. In all the other board meetings, council meetings, association meetings, when you go into closed session, there is some kind of description without, how can I say this, jeopardizing the integrity of what you're going to be discussing in closed session, but it does give the general public an idea of what you're going to be discussing in the executive session. Again, without compromising the actual topic itself. So based on reading the agenda, there is no, without knowing what student identifiable information means, nobody from the general public really, or at least, correct, I may be wrong, but I don't think the general public has an understanding or knowing what you guys are going to be talking about in executive session. And again, without jeopardizing the integrity and the confidentiality of what you guys are going to be talking about. So again, I'm glad Mr. Ludiana brought that up, because again, based on reviewing the agenda today, he's exactly right, or I agree with him.
And to go further on that, it's not so much related to the topic, as opposed to not exposing people that we're not, so that they can be identified as the ones that we're talking about. So we're talking about an altercation. It's doesn't say the altercation of so and so and so and so.
Yeah.
So the altercation is specific enough to satisfy the requirements to go into closed session. But when I first came to the school board in 2017, everything was discussed in closed session. Everything was discussed in closed session. And from who was asking to be to bring the basketball team to play on the fields, fundraisers, everything was discussed. And finally, after a couple of years of complaining about it, there was acknowledgement that that was wrong, and we stopped doing closed sessions. As a matter of fact, we stopped doing them for months, probably not having closed sessions when we should have had it. But the agenda back then was open. It was very broad, just like this one statement is. And we evidently we learned that we can't do it that way. We had to come up with some specificity. And we have done that in previous ones. This one clearly doesn't get anywhere close to that. And it's like we're choosing to go back to the old ways of not complying with the Open Meetings Act requirements. And that again is unilateral. It is not something that's been brought to the board.
Well, this one here, and I think the reason that it's stated that way is because I don't think there's any way that we could kind of, in a sense, put out what we're gonna talk about without somebody knowing who it is. Okay.
There are those kind of considerations, especially in small districts like ours, that make this harder.
Exactly.
But it does not excuse not being specific to at least a level that is reasonable. And if it is that they know about that, it is the only occurrence that ever happened, we still have the responsibility of making it apply to that instance.
I can't figure out a way that we could put this out without
Well,
somebody
again,
knowing who it is.
It's a unilateral decision. You're making the decision to not follow the requirement and not getting anybody else's input on what possible solutions there could be to this, and wanting to go ahead with this non-compliant issue again.
Well, I can't explain to you, like I said, without somebody knowing what this is about and what has happened. So I don't think there's any other situation or way that I can figure that we can do it.
Again, it's limited to your capacity, and that has evidently substantial limit.
Thank you.
I guess I hope I have a couple of seconds left on my 3 minutes, but to go along to what I've recommended in the past about the agenda, it appears that errors keep being made each and every meeting, and I've recommended it in the past a number of times that the agenda should be put out for review to at least everybody within the board to comment on, because I see here that there's at least 2 errors on today's agenda. And again, I'm not here to nitpick or whatever. I just want to point out that, we're all human, we all make mistakes, but when we make a mistake, let's be accountable or own up to our mistakes, because, it's clear that item number 2 shouldn't have been on the agenda. And then, speaking with you, Mr. Sepulveda, earlier today, there's an item number 11 that's missing from the agenda, which is adjournment. That's an action item. So those 2 items, one should have been deleted, and there should be one that should be added. So I'm just putting that out there. With that, I believe I exhausted my 3 minutes under this public input.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Moves us to, is there any other things in reference to our agenda, Victor? No? Okay. Moves us to administration.
So, Mr. President, under item A, we do have another error in our agenda. There is no pound sign after this item. We did bring this to the board last meeting. It didn't have a pound sign then. We don't have a pound sign again. We did have the DWI program asked to use the Performing Arts Center. So we were to bring it back to this meeting so that it could be an action item, and we failed to do that. Okay. So item B is use of facilities for Senior League Baseball. So we do have Ralph Jimenez, who has requested use of the Howie Morales field for Senior League Baseball. It is a 3-week program, so we are probably right in the middle of those 3 weeks. When Mr. Jimenez had come to pick up a form, we had given him the wrong form, so we were not able to get a hold of him in time for the last meeting. We tried probably 10-15 times to get a hold of him so that we can give him the right form before the Senior League started, and we were unable to get a hold of him. So the Senior League has been using the field with my approval, but we need a formal action for them to be able to use the field. So I recommend approval of the item.
You heard the recommendation, do you hear a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Gomez, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Cordova. Any other questions on this?
There's concessions needed, yes, and then I guess they'll do that outside of the concessions then? Because it says concession area needed, no?
They're using it more so like for practice and games, and they're not using the concession at
No.
all.
We're not using
At all.
concession.
Okay,
Not
but
even
it lists-
inside or outside.
It lists yes for concessions.
If I might add, we are not using concessions.
They might have asked for the use of concessions, but I think that's part of the part that wasn't not approved for them to use that part of it. There were some issues with the baseball coach, and they had their own things in there, and so they weren't able to use that part of the facilities.
But they do their own concessions elsewhere? Is that what
They
this
may,
is?
they
Okay,
may.
then that's fine. Yeah.
I don't think they are.
Yeah, they would be at the top of Little League, where the concession stand is. They
Yeah.
just won't have anything there.
The Little League field is the one that has the concession, but the
Senior league.
senior league doesn't.
So can we approve it with that correction that we make concessions no on both parts?
No, the Little League is not ours.
No, this one for the senior league. We're not dealing with anything on the little league.
Well, what do you want to do about the concession?
See, they marked on this one for the senior league that they will be using the concessions. Or they will be providing concessions.
Well, no, but they're not using it though. That was something that they were told that they could not use.
So that's why I was saying you could make the motion that we pass the motion without the use of concessions for
Okay.
the senior league.
Yeah, we can do that. Any other questions? Call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Mr. President, members of the board, item C, we have approval of this coach sponsor handbook, and we do have Mr. Diaz here to answer any questions the board may have in reference to the handbook.
Any questions?
Board, good evening, everybody.
Go ahead.
So the coaches and sponsor handbook hasn't changed since prior to COVID year, so it's kind of the same handbook that we've had. So there's no changes or amendments to the handbook at this time.
The highlighted ones now, is that from previous?
I'm not sure.
Yes,
that was-
so these are
Yes,
changes.
those were approved changes from the
The last time we.
last time we met.
Okay, there was one, so, under no circumstances should any facilities be given out to public students and facilities. I hope that one's enforced.
Yes.
That's been really problematic. But the other part too is, we had a coach, wrestling coach from one of the feeder groups, Coach Udero, coming up, and we had difficulty getting access to the gyms. So are we gonna accommodate that by?
The way we accommodated that was by asking him to provide us a schedule of times where he was going to be. When it became an issue was when those times changed, and we didn't have somebody scheduled to open the facilities at that time. So that does become an issue, but as long as we have a schedule of when they're practicing and when they're going to be there, the facility should be open and they should have access to them.
Okay, I'm sure I'll get a call.
Yes,
Doesn't
it
work.
does work that way.
The other part too is this. I've never seen any postings at the football field that say, the restrictions.
There are, we don't have enough of them, but we have spent some money to buy some signs. We did get them from James inside, so there are some postings, but we realize that we do need some more.
And would that be true also of the other?
It's true of all the
AstroTurf
other
fields?
fields as well. We do need more signage to let them know, especially with the seats, that's not prominent enough. We need to have those out there. It needs to be more prominent.
I appreciate that, because people feel responsible to try to tell people they're not supposed to do that, but then there's no signs out there that they can point to.
They are at all the main entrances.
Yes, they are.
At all facilities. On the football field, the softball field, they are there at any gate entrance.
Yeah, they're just not where they're sitting, but they are listed at the entrances. So like I said, it just needs to be more prominent.
Because there's gates all over the place for them to get in, so. Okay, that's the things I have.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay, Mr. President, item D.
No, we need to vote
Oh,
on.
sorry.
You have a recommendation?
Yes, I'm sorry. Getting ahead of myself. I recommend approval of the coach sponsor handbook as presented by Mr. Diaz.
You heard the recommendation. Do I hear a motion? Motion by Mr. Guadiana, second. second by Mr. Gomez. Any other questions on the coach-sponsored handbook? Call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay.
Okay, now we're moving to item D. I'm gonna share my screen here. And I have Melissa Minus and Diana Davis who are gonna be helping me to present here. We did present, the last meeting I had explained to you that with the American Rescue Plan, CARES 3, we are required to get stakeholder input. So we have had 2 meetings already with our stakeholders. We had one meeting where we went through and explained the whole CARES 3. And then we put out a survey, asked them to provide us some input on how they would like to see the money spent. We are currently working on finalizing the application. So we wanted to bring it to the board as well to see if there's any additional input for recommendations on how to spend the funds before we finalize the application. So we've kind of condensed the presentation that we did for the stakeholder group. So I will present the first half, then Melissa will present, and then Diana will finish it off, and then we'll allow you some time for input on how we want to see this money spent.
For future expenses, not for things that we've already done?
Correct, correct. So there have been 3 CARES Acts that have been provided by the federal government. The first one was CARES 1, and this one was the one that we received retroactive March of 2019 when the pandemic hit. And we have until September 30th, 2022 to spend this money. We actually have already spent this money, so we'll go through and tell you some of the things that we spent it on. Then we have CARES Act 2, that's the one that we're in process of spending now. We were not able to spend CARES 2 until we completed spending CARES 1. And then the third part is the American Rescue Plan, the one we're working on now. It's going to be awarded in 2 separate award amounts. The first part is a 2/3 award to be awarded to us and by May 24th, 2021. So again, as soon as we're able to complete our application and get the bar in for this money, then we can be able to start spending it. And then the 1/3 will be awarded after the New Mexico application is approved.
So we've already received 2/3 of it?
No. We're writing the proposal right now. We're writing the application for the 2/3 of it. The money could be awarded, well, it was awarded May 24th. We have not received any because we have not completed our application and submitted it to the state to have it approved, so we have not spent any of that money. We're still in the process. So with CARES 1, we received $384,000. Most of this money went towards expending it on PPE, masks, gloves, gowns, face shield. We had to buy masks for our instruments in order for the band to be able to play their instruments. We purchased plastic barriers, hand sanitizers, and dispensers. Some of the money was also spent for EAs. We did have one EA that was assigned to help the nurses, and then another EA at the daycare, because the EA at the daycare who did temperature checks was not allowed to work with the students. They had to kind of keep them separated. We also used part of the funding on Chromebooks, software licenses, online registration, GoGuardian, hotspots, and then some of it was used for the air filtration systems as well.
Okay, and then CARES 2, so we were awarded $1.49 million, and that has to be expended by September 2023. So that was just, we figured out, we looked at CARES 1, what did we need to carry and roll over? So again, we cost allocated for the rest of the PPE to continue that for the rest of last year and into this year, and into September 2023. We did our salaries again for our teachers, our nurses that we hired on CARES 1. We want to continue to carry them, our EAs, our counselors, and our attendance success coach. We are able to, with our Chromebooks and other computer licenses that we have in the district, we're able to renew our licenses for that period, continue to pay our hotspots that we have, enhance outdoor learning, and that's a big one, outdoor learning environments. We did purchase pre-K playgrounds, and we are spending some money to get those surfaces ready. And then of course summer programs, if they had a summer jumpstart program at the middle school and a brief one at the high school. So that was with CARES 2. For the CARISA Act, no, that's what I just did. The CARES 3, which is the one we're getting information on and building information for, is going to carry us through September 2024. So we have another couple of years. It is a substantial amount of money. We did get our award letter to say that we're going to get $1.9 million.
2014.
Well, that's in there.
Sorry about
in
that.
2021. And so we did get that award letter already. As Joyce mentioned, we do not have budget authority to expend any of that money because we're in the process. We're addressing our stakeholders. We're addressing you. We're getting ideas to see what else we need in addition to carrying over our staff and things that need to be accounted for. We need to gather ideas. So the 2/3 is this. The 1/3 is almost another million. So we're getting about $2.9 million total to help us ride the pandemic.
How many FTEs are being funded by this?
By 2 or 3.
What's that?
By 2 or
By
3.
both, two and three.
By 2, I believe it was partial for several staff members and then full pay for, do you remember how many it was?
I don't remember the exact figure because we've been working on several.
I can bring that to you, but I can't remember exactly how many full staff, but several of the employees are partial staffing. I think there's probably about 6 or 7 that are full staff.
And Mr. Sepulveda, as a finance committee function, that's something we're supposed to be intrinsically involved in? And that hasn't happened?
With personnel, we don't.
Yes, we are. Anytime there is grant money being used for personnel, we're supposed to make assurance that that position is fully funded. That's in our policy.
We take, yeah, but we do not deal nothing but personnel. We can't tell them how many people they need to hire or what. We don't deal with personnel. We deal with the money part of it.
Our part of it is to make sure there's enough money for the hiring of, for the creating a position and filling it. If there's not enough money, yes, we can tell them you cannot hire that position. That's exactly what the finance committee is supposed to do.
But we don't deal with personnel.
We don't deal with the hiring of it, but we do deal with the creating of the position. That's not a personnel issue in terms of what we're speaking of.
That is a personnel issue because we're telling them how many people they can hire. We deal with the money part that says this is how much money we got and this is how much money they need to spend in projects, not with personnel.
We deal with the money that comes in for grants and saying, okay, if you're gonna add these FTEs, this much money is gonna come from the grant, and if it's fully funded from that, that's pretty easy to approve. If it's not fully funded from that, we have to see what consequence there is from diverting other money to fund that position.
And we do make sure when we're writing the grant that we're only adding positions that the grant will cover.
That doesn't relieve us of our responsibility to oversee the budget.
Yeah, we oversee the budget, but we don't deal with personnel.
Read that policy. Read that policy. We do have that requirement to ensure that there is adequate funding for the FTEs being created. And in that, if there isn't adequate funding, we can say, no, that's not a position that we're going to approve.
No, we don't deal with positions.
Man.
And so to continue, the guidance that has been given us is these CARES 3 acts, the ARPS funds, we have to prioritize, for our students to return safely to in-person instruction. So all the preparedness that we need, we can use monies for that. to maximize in-person instructional time, including focus on learning loss, to sustain and safely operate our LEA, our district. And so a lot of that, when you see from CARES 1 to CARES 2 to CARES 3, is a lot of that staff that we hired in CARES 1. We want to carry them over to CARES 2 and CARES 3, so we'll be able to utilize them for, a number of years while we're waiting for our students to return and build up those SEG funds. But, and then to, again, address social and emotional needs, mental health impacts, and again, the learning loss. So those are the focuses. And when we went out to our stakeholder groups, and including you guys, this is what we're telling you to do. What do we need? So the next couple of slides will show what we've focused on and what we know what we want to do, but then we're going to ask for your opinions.
So with aligning everything with our state, our district, and our schools, these are some of the priorities that we've kind of looked to align with. And if you look up here, is closing that digital divide, accelerated instruction, supporting social and emotional needs, supporting the unique needs of our students with disabilities and at-risk students, providing personal protective equipment, and improving indoor air quality, and to retain our staff. So some of those are just aligned with what the state had, and then talking with our stakeholders in the district, and then within the schools, and then with you guys to see if there's any priorities that we also need to add. And then in order for us to use these funds, these are the 3 things that we have to look at in order to be able to allow it. The first one is the use of the funds intended to prevent, prepare for, or respond to the COVID pandemic, including its impact on the social, emotional, mental health, and academic needs of students. So that's number 1 that we have to look at. The second thing, is it allowable to use of funds under ARP? And the third one, is it reasonable and necessary? And then some of the planned activities are to retain staff, continue SEL initiatives and curriculum, continue with CARES 2, for example, our counselor, nurse, custodian, and attendance, success coach, at-risk coordinator, and food service. Our technology upgrades, and that includes the hardware, the infrastructure, the internet, the licenses, the upgrades, and replacement of devices. And then our after-school program, compensatory services, recovery services, and our summer jumpstart program that we have. PPE, cleaning supplies and services, air filtration, filter replacements, and outdoor learning. And these are, again, based on feedback that we received from our stakeholder meetings.
So if there's anything else you guys feel we need to add, then we're asking for your recommendation. That's what we're asking.
Regarding internet access, where are there gaps still, or?
As far as all students having access to
Yes,
internet,
and
we were able to fill that based on the 167 hotspots that we issued. So we were able to provide internet access to all our students with that.
a lot of it had to do with speed too. Haven't been able to address the speed because the spinning circle was a big issue.
I'm going to let Victor talk about that because there are some things that we are continuing to work on and some initiatives that we have going forward.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up on the public input because there's a couple items that I need to bring to your guys' attention. But when it comes to the connectivity with inside the district, we're working diligently on getting an increase from 200 meg to 2 gigs. That'll be a significant increase. Very beneficial for the district and all the workload of having all the students within the campus and all the staff members. At the state level, there's a new broadband committee, and that's one thing that I'm a member of. And also with the state level, director of technologies group, I am a member of a panel there where we're trying to jump on the new services that the new state broadband connectivity. I can't remember the exact name. My mind's all flustered right now. I was in a lot of meetings today, but on that as well, as part of the consortium that we're a part of right now, and that's one thing I'll bring up in a little while to see if I can put on the agenda for that. That is where we're jumping on the 2 gigs, but once if approved, if we continue with the consortium and the new broadband thing kicks in at the state level, our consortium would just go right into that, where we could see a significant decrease in what we would be paying for internet services. Once the consortium does kick in, our monthly payments to the Southwest REC is going to be a lot less than what we're currently paying monthly. But when it comes to that's for the speed within the district. Hotspots and all that, T-Mobile is who we have our hotspots through. Depending on the area of where that student is located. So far, it seems like it's kind of calmed down now that there's more kids coming inside the district. The few that were out, what's going on is it was just a poor area, or there was too many devices connected to that hotspot. Once we were able to get them to strictly use it for their district issued Chromebooks and not on their TVs and gaming devices while they were in class, the buffering and whatnot kind of decreased. There was really hardly any calls regarding that, other than some spots in Hurley and way out in San Lorenzo. But even those, once they were able to just limit and adjust to how many people were on those devices, we really hardly had any calls regarding that. So I'm not sure what other part of your question is, like referring to, like I know the buffering or the spinning part. That's a sign of just poor connectivity.
And there were a couple of families that, because they had multiple kids doing remote learning, we had to give them 2 hotspots. And once we gave them the 2 hotspots, then their service improved dramatically.
Yeah, that's what it is.
So, you mentioned Hurley, because I know Hurley is notorious for having really slow access. Are there any concerns still there because of the access? And that would be...
Or in district or outside district?
Outside district.
Outside
all my
district.
questions are related to outside district, because
Yes.
that's what I think a lot of this is intended for. Although the increase that you mentioned here is going to help substantially. And along those lines, what's the time frame for that increase?
For the time frame for that increase after today's meeting is right now is we're waiting on Western New Mexico Communications to bump up their network to be able to support the workload that they're going to be providing to the entire community. Well, the community and all the entities that they're a part of, because they're one of the only vendors that put a bid out for this consortium. CenturyLink is who we're currently through, which is purchased by Newman. They're very expensive. They didn't really they weren't too I guess what you say when it comes down to pricing. Western was
CenturyLink isn't repairing telephone lines.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of new, like I said, they're getting bought out little by little. We have a hard time with getting service tickets when we do have issues. But I know things are going to be changing. There's so much at the state level that they're really putting pressure on the local ISPs to. They have to revamp their systems and networks to be able to provide better connectivity. That's one thing that we do lack in the area, Lordsburg and Deming as well.
So you still didn't mention when
Western
New Mexico.
I don't have a time frame. It was set to be turned on July 1st. They're currently still trying to upgrade their infrastructure. We reached out. We're hoping to see if we can get a call or a site visit with them sometime this week, hopefully, or even just a return to call to see if they can give us an update on their end on what's going on.
So, are we exploring Verizon or T-Mobile or whomever else?
For district internet?
Possibly.
They couldn't provide it.
Or what's that?
They couldn't provide it. Yeah, those are basically hotspot devices only. The district can't run off a hotspot. We just gotta be patient. It is gonna get turned up, and you know, when we do that, it's gonna be like, it's
So-
gonna be.
What does that require on our end? Does that require different servers, routers?
Our
cable?
end, in the last year and a half, we've been revamping that. We've been going to the legislature for funding. We've currently replaced our main infrastructure here at our admin seal. The schools that we're lacking right now are currently Snell and Hurley for their switching, which is the infrastructure to provide better connectivity within their school. Right now I'm still on hold on E-rate for our category 1 project that we have for that as well. And that's funding for that. We have some funding that we were able to secure for the legislature for 2020. But that's another part of what I was going to bring up for the public input for something to get put on the agenda, and that was focusing on security infrastructure and our phone system. And we have some money on that, and whatever's left over from the phone system, we're hoping that we can replace a couple switches at both of those campuses to keep them afloat. With the recent storms that have rolled in, we've taken a significant hit. We had 5 power outages within 72 hours, and I lost 4 switches, and that was at a campus that wasn't on my wish list. Every time we see the clouds, every time we see a storm rolling in, we used to cross our fingers for Snell. Hurley, we cross our fingers for our fiber that's going out there, our aerial fiber. But the school that took the brunt of this was Central. And I have a Band-Aid right now on that network, keeping it up and afloat until we can secure some funding to replace some switches over there as well.
So these are our switches that we're talking about?
Yes, sir.
So they're not like on UPSs or anything?
We have those two. Those are right at 12 years old. We constantly replace batteries on that.
If you want any board recommendations, I would think would be to make sure that we're able to withstand the regular weather that we get here, that we're built to that capacity, and that we're going to be built to the capacity of the 2 gigabyte signal.
When it comes to the 2 gigabyte thing, our system can handle up to 10. So we'll be fine when it comes to that. We have that in place. That was one of the main focus points when we replaced the entire wireless network for the entire district.
But if all of that's being run on things that are very fragile, then this is a good time to beef that up.
So the main core, which is over here, is solid. I don't know if you remember a few years ago when San Lorenzo, when we turned them up to 500 meg, we're the bottleneck over here with 200. They can't go full capacity until we are bumped up over here. We have the equipment in place. There is a couple things that we would have, one or two things, but that's the appliance that W&M would come in and put in to remove what we currently have in place from the lumen, which is centrally, just to turn their stuff on. But our system can handle 10 weeks.
In meeting with Victor, we have added $200,000 to CARES 3 to help with the infrastructure.
Good.
Ms. Varela or Victor? I know I called last week on the broadband.
Mr. Munoz?
No, so I had a commission meeting last week.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, it was with the interim county manager with Randy Villa, but because the county has the CARES Act and they were looking at trying to work with the Cobre District and Silver District on broadband. So the chairman had asked me to pass that message but I called last week and so.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to reach out to the gentleman, but tomorrow is one of the days that we don't have a lot going on, and that's where I was gonna reach out to him. But yes, we'd be more than glad to collaborate with the new county manager or whoever, because we do work with a lot of people within the districts, within the municipalities and the county government and other school districts.
Is that it?
I had a question also regarding the summer jump start programs. How did that go this summer, or is that for next year?
No, we had 2 programs this year, so Mr. Avalos had approximately 50 students that attended his program. I think it was 3 weeks. And then the high school had, I think it was 20 students that attended. What the high school students were working on was credit recovery. So they had, I believe it was 10 students who earned 1 or 2 credits.
That moves us to Superintendent Report.
Mr. President, members of the board, I do have several items on my superintendent report. The first one is I have 3 fundraiser applications. The first one is from the cheer team. This has actually already happened. They had a lemonade stand, sucker sale, and face painting at Golf Park during the July 3rd event that they had at Golf Park in Silver. Their goal was to raise $1,200, and the purpose was to raise money for camp. We have another fundraiser from Skills USA with the goal of $500 to sell t-shirts during the month of August, and the purpose is for state and national competition fees. And then the third one is from the baseball team to sell hats through December 2021 with the goal of $200, and the purpose is to enhance meals and gear for the baseball team. The district did hold a very successful job fair last Wednesday, so we were able to fill most of our positions. We also had a new employee orientation today with 30 new employees, so I'm going to ask Diana Davis to give a report to the board on where we stand with staffing.
Mr. President, members of the board, we did lose 38 people this past year to either retirement or resignation. And we did 22 hires this year. And the reason that she said 30 is because some of our teachers that did go through orientation last year had to go through orientation this year. So we actually had 22 hires this year. Right now, San Lorenzo is fully staffed. Cobre High School is fully staffed except for the daycare needs 1 educational assistant. And that one is because we just barely got one of their EAs just barely gave us their letter, I think last week, for resignation, so we're going to try to fill that one. And Central Elementary is also completely staffed. Bayard Elementary and Snell Middle School need a custodian each. And Snell Middle School needs also an interventionist. And Hurley Elementary needs a bilingual teacher. So that's the only positions that are still needing there. And then district-wide, and why I say district-wide is because we are needing to hire a counselor, and I'm not sure if we're going to reshuffle some counselors to make sure that we cover all the schools. And then also another school nurse to help alleviate some of the help the nurses need, because we only have 3 right now. We're also needing a speech, a social worker, and a half-time OT at this time. So those are the only positions that we still need to fulfill.
And we are looking at adding an additional custodian position that will be split between Hurley and Smith.
That's all. Any questions?
I appreciate this report. I haven't heard this kind of data since I've been on the board. And I'm really glad to get some substance on this. So I'm very grateful for the report.
Ms. Davis, Mr. President, Ms. Davis, on the teachers that we got, are they licensed already, or are we going through
the ones that we hired, we do have some that are licensed, and there is a few that are having to go, like our ag teacher at the high school will have to go to the alternative route, and then we do have a math teacher going the alternative route. Our interventionist down at Hurley is a licensed teacher out there. And most of our English teachers going the alternative route too. And then the other positions are mostly EAs. So those are just our teaching positions that we had to fulfill. So we have only 2 that were licensed.
So with the alternative route, we do give them the option of going through university, Western or any other university, or the LEAP program. And so most of them have selected to go the LEAP program because it's They just feel that it's more practical, hands-on to what they're gonna be needing in the classroom.
Thank you.
Cordova?
So,
The custodian from Hurley, from last year that got sick, is he gonna be able to return, or have you heard a status on that one?
I heard, last week I spoke to a relative who said that he's wanting to come back. So, I'm not sure that he's 100% up to being able to come back yet, but he is considering coming back.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
The 38 that we lost, how many were retired versus the?
Can I get that information? I do have it, I just didn't break it down that way, I just got the totals, but I do have a list of how many.
Okay,
So I can get that information for you.
I appreciate it.
Okay.
Okay, we also did post a legal notice in reference to a possible quorum for convocation and the board retreat. So convocation will be held Wednesday beginning at 8 o'clock of this week, with breakfast being served from 7:15 to 8 o'clock.
How was the date decided on,
How is the date for convocation decided on?
for the retreats?
No, that's a convocation.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
So we're talking two things right here.
Okay.
Right now I'm talking about the convocation, and so that was scheduled a while back.
Okay,
Okay, and then the board retreat, before I leave the convocation, I just kinda wanted to know who will be planning to attend the convocation, just so we can introduce you. Yes?
Wednesday at 8.
Wednesday at 8, at the Performing Arts Center.
and what does that entail?
So, for the convocation, we have on the agenda, we'll be doing new staff introductions. NEA will be doing a welcome. Delta Kappa Gamma, no wait, sorry, that's new employee orientation. So the convocation, let's see, we have presentation of colors, national anthem, I'll be doing a welcome. Mr. President, do you want to do a welcome as well for the convocation? Do you want to say anything?
Whatever, if you want to, or no.
Okay. And then we have the welcome by the NEA. We'll have, introduction of administrators, and then the administrators will introduce their new staff. And then we have a keynote speaker who's going to be coming, dealing with the social emotional to help us get started in that regard. She will be doing a presentation of reigniting your passion and fulfilling your purpose. You can't give from empty. And then Ms. Davis will be doing years of service recognitions. Mr. Peru will give an update on facilities, and then all staff will be provided lunch in the cafeteria.
I'll be there as well. It goes from what time?
It's scheduled from 8 to 11:40, more or less. Okay, then the board retreat, we do have that scheduled Wednesday from 5 to 8. I believe we had talked about the date and time at our last board meeting.
No, you didn't mention the dates.
We did. We did, and the reason that we mentioned the date is because we do have one of our coaches that's working with the whole district on social emotional. She will be here that day, so she will be able to facilitate our meetings. So we did talk about the date last time at our last meeting.
I don't remember any such discussion, but I can't make that one, and I really would like to have been there, to be there, I should say.
And again, we did post a legal notice that we would have a possible quorum, so. And we are bringing some
subs,
food, so.
some sandwiches.
If you don't have
and
time to
chips.
eat dinner.
It's 5 to 8.
Melissa's cooking, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so on another note, we did receive our re-entry toolkit today at noon. I have not had a chance to really read through it carefully. But I do have some recommendations in order for us to start school. So some of the things that the PED had presented last week when I went to the conference for superintendents was that the district still needs a point of contact person, so we will continue to use Danielle in this role. A lot of the questions that are asked are medical questions, and so it's important that we have a nurse that take the lead in that. Our reporting requirements have changed slightly. We're only required to report those infectious while on campus, whereas before, even people that were on remote and had not stepped foot in the classroom, we were still having to report those as well. We are now able to report the next business day if we get a report of a positive case on the weekends or evenings. Before, we were having to report it within 4 hours. And so we were doing a lot of work on the weekends, on the evenings, to make sure that that was being taken care of. Quarantine guidelines have been eliminated for vaccinated individuals. We do need to continue for unvaccinated if they are close contacts. Communication notifications need to go out to those, only for those infectious while on campus. Surveillance testing, we are required to continue with that for monthly for unvaccinated staff, and our goal is to have 25% of the unvaccinated staff surveillance tested each week, so that each person, sorry, I didn't take that off, I saw you looking up there, so that each person gets tested once a month. We are having continued voluntary monthly testing for our students. Unvaccinated specifically for students who are in athletics and extracurricular activities, and the goal is 25%. Last year we did send out some letters that it was voluntary. We had very few students take us up on that. I'd say we had anywhere between 5 and 7 students who volunteered for surveillance testing. Isolation rooms are still required. We are allowed to use drinking fountains again. We did, as a district, though, purchase multiple water filling stations, so we are encouraging the use of water bottles, although we can use the drinking fountains. Locker rooms can be used as long as they have the air purifiers inside the locker rooms. Indoor air quality requirements remain in place. Screening and temperature checks are required for unvaccinated staff. So I'm recommending to our principals that we not continue to do surveillance testing for students. That does take a really long time. That's not required, and it's not recommended by the state. So we will continue, though, to do screenings and temperature checks with our staff. We do still need to continue with social distancing to the maximum extent possible. 3 feet for students, 6 feet for adults to students, and adults to adults. So with this new toolkit, the state has taken a stance with masks. So they are requiring that everyone in the elementary school wear masks, because students in the elementary schools are not able to get vaccinated. So that would include all staff and students. And the guidance does say that at the secondary level, students who are vaccinated are not required to wear masks. However, in looking at our numbers, we have at the secondary level, between the middle school and the high school, that we're aware of, that we have been given the information that they're vaccinated. We know of 45 students who have been vaccinated. That's less than 8% of our student population. So as a district, we have an obligation to do everything that we can to help students be safe in school, to help our staff be safe at school, to help our community be safe. So it's my recommendation that we have masks for everybody, all students and all staff, and that as we continue to get students in the secondary vaccinated, we continue to monitor those numbers, and as we have more students become vaccinated within our secondary schools, then we can look more carefully at the guidance that the state has given us and maybe ease back on the use of masks. So that's
How is that going to work, Ms. Butler, that we're not supposed to ask if they've been vaccinated?
right.
but yet,
So the way that the state has put that out to us is that we would need proof that they're vaccinated. So if they choose not to give us proof, that is a right that the parents have, a right that the students have, we would treat them as an unvaccinated person, unless we have the proof. Okay. The other thing is that we have had, to my knowledge, five students whose parents have asked for continued remote instruction, 3 from one family. So we're exploring a couple of different options right now. I have met with the regional consortium in Deming. Several of the districts within our consortium have asked for some support to continue the remote learning for those families that need it or want to continue it. We would look at going with Edgenuity. We had another meeting with them today, so the REC, Val Brea, was getting some additional information from the Edgenuity company so that we can have more information to move forward with that. The other thing is, on Wednesday of last week, New Mexico Public Education Department did open up a virtual course consortium. So I've done a little bit of research on that website. There are a few districts, I believe it's 6 districts in the state of New Mexico right now, who are part of that consortium. So we are able to enroll our students in some of those classes through the consortium. We do have to pay for it on a per student basis. I have put in calls to 2 districts right now that are offering courses from K through 12. That's Cuba, thought you'd be happy to hear that, and Tularosa. But nobody has returned my call, so I am going to continue to call them. I want some additional information from them on how their remote courses are going to work, so that when we have families that want to continue the remote option, we have a couple of different options that we can give them. So I have been speaking to the principals. They are letting the parents know that we are working on options, and we probably, I'm saying I know we will not be able to start with either option on Monday, because we don't have enough information to move forward. So we are working with those families to try to help support them.
you know, the other thing that being online will help, I think, is if, and that's a pretty big if, the way our weather's going, if we have snow days, they could go online and we won't have to make those days up.
So we are being really careful now when we look at, because right now we are looking at purchasing a phonics program for grades K1 and 2, and that is one of our important things that we're looking at going forward when we're adopting curriculum is, do they have an online component, so that if we needed ever to go back to online, we could do it seamlessly.
Question along something else. Last year, about middle of the year or so, the topic came up and it was discussed back and forth big time about the medical marijuana thing. Has that progressed, or where are we at, or
So we have
with
not
students that require that?
We have not moved forward with any of our policies. In fact, the gentleman who was working on our policies passed away unexpectedly 2 weeks ago. So go ahead.
I've been trying to see if we can get a hold of someone because he did pass away and he was like my direct contact. So I've been trying to figure out for you guys who our next person's going to be, so we can continue working on board policy. So as soon as I get that information, I will share that with you guys, so that we can maybe start setting some dates on working on the board policy.
Because that's crucial that we get that addressed.
But I believe there's already case law that's been established that will require to allow that medicinal marijuana administered.
Yeah, but the question was, how are we going to approach it, or how
Right.
do we store it, or what's going to happen?
Do we require parents to come in and administer it? Do we have locations to store it? So there are several questions that we have to address as part of that.
And I think that, Mr. Mariano, on that, if you remember, when we got the board policy, we had a team of lawyers that looked at it, and they had already put up all the new laws in there, and we have to just review them, and then any other changes we needed to make. So I'm sure that hopefully when we do have the next person that comes on board to work with us, hopefully some of that verbiage will be in there for guidance for us.
But the logistics of it can be established temporarily before the policy is, so if that's what's really holding us up, we can't use that as an excuse if there's case law.
Well, and we can, I mean, again, we would have to meet, or you guys would have to meet and kind of look at that
Look at
and,
it logistically, yeah.
go from there.
Yep.
The last thing on my report is that I was contacted by the Cuddy Law Firm. They do want to come and present at the next board meeting the possibility of changing the tax year for SB 9 from 6 years to 5 years. And she wants to come in and explain the rationale and why we would want to consider moving forward with that. So we'll add that to the next
6 years
agenda.
to 5 to reduce it, wouldn't
Well, the reason is to put it in alignment with board elections, which would really save the district financially.
you? Okay.
And she'll come and explain that further.
Regarding your presentation, the isolation stations, will Bayard and Hurley portables be ready for that?
Hurley will not be using the portable for an isolation room.
They're gonna be doing it in the school instead?
That's what they chose to do, yes.
They chose to do, or just?
No,
because
that's
we-
what they chose to do. They're using the
building will be ready,
portable.
we're almost done painting it, it should be done. You know,
They're-
I mean,
they're-
I'm
they're
just-
going to
They
use-
finished the fire alarm system, last week. The only thing we have not been able to get is the intercom wire. And, that's been on order, he said, and he will not be able to put the intercom wire until he gets it. He's had it on order for 8 months for other schools also, and so they came in, all the fire alarms, if you pull a pull station there, it works now. Everything's good, we painted all the inside, all the outside's almost done getting painted, and we'll be good to go.
So the
The HVAC
portable,
system works,
What
everything
about
works.
Bayard?
the portable is ready to
Bayard portable,
use.
portable at Bayard is, will be fire ready, but it will not have the, I mean, it'll be intercom ready because that one's already set up. They're gonna come back, we just, submitted, for a PO, and, as soon as we get that, they will come back
How
and
about
finish up.
structurally, the ceiling, the bathrooms?
Those we just have to touch up and do that. The plumber said that he would have that stuff ready to go. We're probably gonna have to change, it depends on what they decide to use it. She said she was not gonna use it as an isolation either. So I asked her if she was gonna use it for little ones, because if we have to use it for little
They were
ones.
using it for band before.
Yeah, but if she said she might use it for little ones, if she does, we need to change the toilets out, so the little ones can use it, because right now we have the big toilets in it.
And those will work.
And the HVAC, no, and the HVAC, is working already. We are currently, gonna be running some conduit so we can get the fire alarm system into it. There's some conduit that's run underground that we located on the inside of the building, on the main building, so we know where we have to route it and put the conduit to it. And then once we put the conduit, because they won't do the conduit, we do the conduit and then they'll come and wire it.
Do you have any idea of when either one of the two, both of them will be ready?
The Hurley portal will be ready for school to start.
By next Monday?
That's what we're anticipating, we're working on.
And Bayard?
Bayard will be a couple weeks out, because the fire, they won't come put the fire alarm this week at all.
The other question I had are the hall lockers going to be used, not just the
Yes.
locker rooms?
Yes.
Hall lockers going to be used? So could that, the 3 feet and 6 feet spacing won't be, possible then? And I'm okay with it. I mean,
Oh.
if that's what you guys have decided, that, I'm okay with it, but that's gonna, how does that fit into that,
They
social
still have
distancing?
staggered dismissal times.
Yeah, but the lockers could still be right next to each other.
Well, and you know, the thing is when they're going to their locker, they're not spending an extended amount of time there. They're going to their locker 1 minute, 2 minutes tops, and then they're leaving. So it's not an extended period of time.
And they'll be wearing the masks.
Mhm.
This
Yes.
is
Okay.
They should go
Okay.
Oh, but do we have any, like, contingency plan in case we get the viruses we start getting a surge in viruses and they say close the schools?
So the state is saying that they're, you know, I mean, our goal, of course, is to remain open 100%. You know, so the state is really looking at not having to close us down unless, I mean, if something really bad happens. I know last year when we were back in April and May, we did have some students in some classes that we had to send home, but it was nothing extensive. So I think if we continue with all the safety precautions that we have in place and everybody continues to abide by them, we can minimize the spread in our schools.
Yeah, I think there's gonna be a state figure that's gonna override everything, and that would call for a state uniform practice, which could be shut down.
And that's always an option. You know, that's why we've, you know, got some things in place that would, you know, this year make the transition more seamless. Our students all have their Chromebooks. Our teachers have taught remotely, and there's a lot of things in place that will help us to make that transition
Certainly.
if we need to.
I just want it to be in the radar.
We always have to keep that open as an option. We just don't know.
Okay. Is that all, Joe? Somewhere?
That's it. That concludes my report. Next board meeting is August 9th.
The board retreat again was what time?
5 to 8.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Public input, this time we'll take anything from the public.
I just wanted to mention one thing on public input. Started working with the P&M representative again, because we're looking at LED lighting for the school district to be able to save some money. I visited with Ms. Varela a little bit. The representative brought me some new figures. I'd like to send them to you guys so you guys can look at them, you know, because the incentives are even better now. It's going to be a situation when we, God willing, we pass the mill levy, if that's where the money will, some of that money will have to go. For example, you know, like to do this, one of the things that I talked to them about is doing the gyms, because the gyms, when the lights are on, it just, that thing just keeps rotating. We're putting a lot of money that we could be saving with them. Just the Snell gym, for example, our cost would be $5,000 to transition all that into LED. You know, so I mean, I want to send some of this paperwork to you because they have the Snell Middle School also. You know, we didn't enter the high school because eventually we'd like to be able to renovate that high school. But I did include the gymnasium so that you can see. And the gymnasium was really good about it. It's not just the lights in the gymnasium. It's the lights in the gymnasium. It's in the locker rooms. Anything that's tied to that gymnasium that we will not tear down, that lighting is tied to that. And like that one to totally retrofit that. Cost to us would be $11,000. The total cost is $37,000. P&M's incentives right now are really good, and they'll help us with the paperwork and help us get all that through once we are able to do that. But I was gonna scan it and email it to you so you guys can look at it also. And the only thing they have wrong is they have the year built in for the middle school is the wrong year. But I mean, all the other stuff is in there correctly. But I just wanted you all to be aware of it, so when I email it to you, you know that's what it is.
Okay.
Victor.
All right, and then I have one. So I have a copy of a suggested item for the board, and this is for our Southwest Consortium RFP evaluation. Has some items. I'm not sure if it's all right to give you guys a copy of each so you guys can see what it states, and then the memorandum of understanding that we need to have signed to continue with being a member of the Southwest Consortium, so we can move forward with our infrastructure upgrade for it. And then now that I'm stopping, I think the two committees that we're a part of, and it's the new statewide education network advisory. That's the new the thing that Department of Government created for connectivity, and then the PSCOC/PSFA advisory committee, broadband advisory committee is going on. So I wanted to see if I can present this to you guys. So you guys each have a copy so you know what it's about, and then to see if I can get permission so we can sign and send. I thought we did this back before the end of the year when we originally presented, but I'm not sure if it ever got sent off. So I never got a copy back, but I just wanted to see if we can move forward on that. And then my next, so that's the, I want to look at it to see, make sure it's okay.
It'll take me a little bit longer.
But
Does that have to be on the agenda as an action item?
it actually is to continue the move forward, I believe.
It's on the agenda?
No, I'm requesting to get it put on the agenda.
Oh, okay.
Would it be okay if I do it? that is one item that we want to see if we can get added for the next board meeting. I'll give you guys a couple minutes to see that, and then I have one more item to move forward.
Will you be presenting on this, or will they be presenting on this?
I could do one, or I can also see if I can get someone to jump in on it. They pretty much gave a presentation before the end of the year. This is just so we can continue moving forward now that there's no further audits.
What was the other?
And then, so the second item I'd like to get put on the agenda is to see if I can give you guys a recommendation on a new phone system that we're looking at for the entire district. Right now, we are not in compliance with 911 services. So if there was something to go on at Central Elementary, someone fell down, hit their head, passed out, they need emergency services, they call 911, it's coming here to administration. Unless they classify where they're at, this is where it comes. So this system will be in compliance with the 911 system by each site. So and it's very critical. It's sort of been something that would have been awesome to have last year during the pandemic, with everyone needing phone services. It's like how to figure out how to get their office phone at home. How to get their calls forwarded. Not everyone has a local phone number, so it's kind of hard to forward a phone to a long distance number that's outside of our area. So that was one issue. A lot of people don't want to use their personal cell phones to give their phone numbers out to the public, So this system, this basically their office line will go anywhere they go. So if they wanted to take their actual handset home, they could plug it right into their modem. They have their district phone number there at their residence. If they're on the go, there's an app they can download, and they have their office line on that app. They can use their computer. There's multiple ways of them having a form of communication. This system is also part of the presentation that we were looking at whenever Mr. Mendoza was bringing up the San Lorenzo issue and part of the high school issue with announcements and whatnot, due to the fact that San Lorenzo's outdated system fried. I think it was last year, the end of 2019. I'm not exactly sure exactly dates, but this system will have
system that they have on there is called Informacast, and basically what this can do is send a page out to the whole network. So each phone would get an alert if some emergency comes up, or they can page a single phone, or even they have speakers that we can set up in areas that don't normally have phones. So if an emergency comes up, they'll send the same message to that phone or to the IT speaker. Also does valve schedules, emergency alerts. Like you said, it does the E911 to locate exactly where they're calling from, so they can send emergency services to that area. There's a lot of features that these phones can do.
Yeah, and what we'll be doing is also, in case there is some sort of emergency active shooter or whatnot, we're focusing on putting a phone in every room rather than just providing a phone in staff rooms that are currently staffed. Due to the fact that if something goes in, those people can go to that room, secure themselves, and still know what's going on. Still have outside, something to hear an alert or hear the call or call out. So they know what's going on within the building. The other thing too is what we're going to do is within the hallways and dead spots, we'll also put IP speakers, which are over the network, that will be tied right into this system. Whereas you can hear it within the inside of the building or those areas, or even on the exterior, so they know what's going on. It's just something we want to bring the crowd. We've had two vendors. There's a third one that was in the loop last year, but we have a total of 3 that were providing the information. And we're right now there's 2 that we've recently visited with. So we would like to see if we can bring that up and put that on the next board meeting as well.
So what effort was taken to get information about people that can provide the service? Did you advertise it or solicit?
Well, this is what we just took to the when we went to request money from the legislature. It's
I'm talking just about the vendor parts. You know, okay, we got this one vendor, we got another vendor. So how did?
I'm going off the CES contract.
You're going off the CES contract.
I only follow vendors that are from or entities that are providing city services.
And the amount you're talking about?
Well, I don't have an actual amount as of yet because I'm doing a whole phone count. I should have that wrapped up no later than Wednesday to provide to them because they're waiting on me for that. We have a lot of, originally we had 255 phones. Now we're looking at a little bit more than that due to the fact that we want to secure a spot in empty classrooms or areas as a focus point, even what do you call them, like in the lobby area as well.
And especially like in the jams and areas where you can't just have a small little phone broadcast throughout the whole channel.
And the funding for this is coming from, is there a grant then associated?
Oh, this is funding secured from the legislature.
Okay, cool.
This is a thing that we took last year. I made a presentation.
I actually made a presentation to them. They had their hearings. Okay.
But that's one thing you guys can, if we can get that added.
Anything else from the public?
Okay. I guess there's also, I don't think it has to be, but there's one thing, when it comes to the whole security, and it was brought to the fact that not everyone knows what's going on within the district. We are in the process of writing a grant for surveillance and to provide that security for the entire district. This will be a thing that will, if we did have to go back into COVID restrictions and know the temperatures of everyone, these cameras can do the infrared detection. They can tell us what the body temperature is of someone. Facial recognition. So if there's within the system, or SIS, if there's parents or individuals that are not allowed on campus, we can get their phone if we have a copy of their picture or even off social media. We can put it in our system and it'll alert. It'll send an alert through this Informacast system as well. They can integrate together to do that. But we're wanting to do. We're looking at trying to get cameras for the entire district to try to secure it. There's a lot of funding out there right now for that. So it's just a time to do it, and it's just getting the application for that. But that's one thing that we're looking at trying to.
Yeah, it's just another thing to keep students safe, and that's the majority. Yeah.
And starting the second week of August, correct, Joyce? We're also doing a new staff laptop rollout. New laptop monitors, cases for every staff member. That is a plus. That's good news that we have going out for everyone. It's been on the download because with the expected dates of delivery as we experienced with the Chromebooks, we were supposed to receive them at the beginning of July. Then we got notification, hey, you're not looking at till the end of almost I think it was like around December 20th for our new laptops to come in, and we were surprised when we received them last week. So it's been pretty nice. We do have the docking stations that go to those. Those aren't estimated to be here till the third week of August, but the current docking stations that the staff members have for the current laptops are compatible, so that'll get them by until those come in, and we'll. But that's another good
I think that would be something good for the administrators too, because I know like when I was at the high school, I keep myself up to date with all the sexual offenders list. So if I saw somebody come on campus, I had to escort them up and stuff. I think something like that would be really good for the administrators, because in that way, they don't have, it's not another thing they can take off their plate, and if something
for the video surveillance. Yes, yeah. And it's pretty awesome because you don't have to have someone at the high school for the security systems that we have in place for all the sports complexes to watch over the new turf. the principal wants us to be there watching what's going on. It's hard to do it, and without having a timestamp of what goes on, you have to go and scan and break that film down. This program does it all for you. It'll tell you alerts. It'll even say, we're having a meeting right now, and let's say Mr. Guayan jumped on the table and this thing knows that that's out of place. It'll send us an alert. It'll say, hey, there's something going on, and it'll notify whoever's on that call, on that list, saying that there's something going on.
It's got an
very intelligent.
AI algorithm on it. Basically, it's going to start picking up on odd things that are normal around work. The facial recognition,
That would be normal for
if
me.
there is somebody that you do know you want on campus, you can put an image of their face, say if you go to Facebook and they're a parent or somebody that shouldn't be allowed on campus, it'll start picking up like, okay, this person's in the database. It starts building a profile on it. It says this one isn't allowed on campus, and it's like how many times they showed up.
Okay.
And it basically breaks the thing.
I'm sorry, but I think you're over your 3 minutes, okay?
It's a lot to cover.
But for future references, can this information be on the agenda so people know that it's coming out and they can, and certainly, it's not public input. This is from.
Well, and he just gave you a preview of it and asked for it to be put on the next agenda.
Okay, I know, and so that's cool, and so the full depth of it is really something everybody should be participating with.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of information, it's good for everybody to do.
It's a lot to cover.
Any other thing in public input? Yes, sir.
Cool, well now he set the bar, so I
There
can
you
go.
go.
I can go as long as he went. And nobody cut him off.
We had 3 items.
No, not really. I'm pretty sure you guys are, hopefully that facial recognition doesn't lock the door when they sees me coming to the board meetings. So no, well again, under public input, for the record, George Esqueda, I think, I don't know, to echo or just from what I've observed, it seems like today's meeting, there's been a lot of information that's been put out there that I think the public would, at least from my point of view, should be appreciative of that the district is being proactive and looking ahead. So again, for that I want to commend you guys. But I guess one item that's not on the agenda under public input, at your last board meeting when the power cut out, I know you guys went into executive session and discussed the superintendent position, and I don't know if a decision was made ultimately to, I know there was just some discussion revolving around a recommendation that a new superintendent shouldn't be selected until after the next board elections, and I don't know if that's still the case, if you guys are looking to delay the search for a new superintendent until after the November elections, or if you guys, or I guess what's the status or the current status right now of the, not only selection of the board consultant or potential board consultant, but the actual advertisement of a new superintendent. And again, this is nothing against Mrs. Varela, because from what I've seen, she's certainly doing her homework and coming to the meetings prepared. So again, nothing against her, just more for informational purposes, I guess.
Yeah. Right now, I think the only one that has put in a thing was Dr. Frager. I haven't talked to Terry because she'd been out with her mom and stuff, so I haven't talked to her on if we have gotten any other ones, and so I right now I can't tell you if we have some other companies out there to doing the superintendent search. But as soon as that is done, then we're still gonna move forward with whatever comes along there in those capacities.
So to go along with that, I'd like to go on the record and request if Terry could maybe email me, or if Mrs. Varela could email me the proposal that was sent out to the various board consultants requesting such service.
Yeah, I think that is all done through the New Mexico School Board Association. Because those companies, I think, work for there. I think there's a total of 5 of them that work there. but there's only one that has shown an interest. And the others, as far as the last time that I checked with Terry, which was, a good couple of weeks ago, hadn't responded. So I don't know where we are with that, if they have responded since then or not.
Well, I guess maybe my question to Mrs. Varela, are you aware of any?
I'm not aware of a formal proposal that has been sent out. I'm not sure if there was one before I came on board. I'm not aware of
because with that, I'd like to guide you to policy 198 for board consultants. If you can review that policy, because it clearly identifies, and again, that's policy 198. It clearly identifies the process that the district needs to follow and what information needs to be put in the proposal. So again, just wondering, if either Terry or if I could present that tomorrow morning, I certainly appreciate it.
And for procurement, the posting is supposed to be at the jurisdiction for which the purchase is being requested. So, and that's state law.
So that was, again, my, under that, again, just seeing what the status is, but it appears that you guys are gonna continue moving forward. So, but again, I appreciate that, and again, but if I could be sent that document in the morning.
I'll have to ask Terry
Okay.
if we have one.
Okay, I'd appreciate it. Again, that's policy 198. So that's one item. I believe that's, yeah, I understand. I tend to talk a lot, but now I'm here representing or being a proxy for somebody who had intended to show up to the board meeting and discuss an item or a topic that's been ongoing now for quite some time. It's a request for information in regards to the construction contractor that was associated not only with the football field, but the softball field and the baseball field, Hallis Construction, in regards to request for information, request for an in-person meeting to discuss those items that appear to be, maybe not all the information has been provided, but based on the information that has been provided, 2 + 2 does not equal 4 in the math that they're putting together. And I have been given the permission to state his name if you'd like. So if you guys want, I can certainly put that in for the record if you need be. Okay.
So we do have that email, and I know that Jackie Riley did respond that it was taken care of through CES. So it's a matter of us contacting CES because they're the ones that have all the documents because they went through them.
Okay, so is there a time frame in regards to when that information may be?
I don't have a timeline right now because I'm not sure that if we have contacted them yet to let them know that we would need that information.
Is there a possibility of maybe Terry emailing both of us that if she has or hasn't, or when she may be contacting CES?
Was this an IPRA request?
Excuse me?
Was it an IPRA request or just an email sent?
Well, it's been emails that have been ongoing since Mr. Mendoza has been here, so it's been a couple of months now. Well, at least Mr. Mendoza's been gone, or now it's probably been about 3.
Request for public information.
Yeah. So it's been a request that's been ongoing back and forth. So, but again, there was a request for, and there have been in-person meetings, but not all the information has been presented. And again, they're still waiting for that in-person meeting with the contractor to see if what was actually paid was installed.
So who were the in-person meetings with? The ones that have been there?
The in-person meetings were, the gentleman from the public was Robert Esqueda, I believe Mr. Mendoza, and I believe Terry. And I don't know if any other members of the administration were present, but I do know of at least one in-person meeting. And he could certainly elaborate. Again, he was just unable to attend tonight because he had to take care of some issues at my mom's house.
The only thing that I see is, getting the representative contractor here.
You have to pay him.
I don't know if we have that authority to request the contractor to come here. But I don't know, there again. But,
One of the things, Mike, if I could just interject, one of the things is I've been in contact, trying to contact the company because we need some work done that hopefully before the warranty expires on the track and on one of the softball field and the baseball field. So I've been trying to make contact, so maybe we can get something coordinated where when he comes in to evaluate the situation, he can possibly meet with everyone.
Okay. So I guess to go along with that statement about the warranty, as long as you notify them of any deficiencies or warranty items and it's on record, they do have to address those. So as long as you have documentation via email or whatever supporting that, they have to come back and take care of them.
So hopefully I can make contact with them and we can schedule something and then I can let everyone know when he is coming, that way we can get something scheduled for everyone to meet.
But I know that he was gonna come to correct what was needed on the track.
And they haven't come yet, so I'm trying to make contact with them again.
So again, those are my two items.
And hopefully it'll be before it gets cold, because I told them, they need on my correspondence with them, I told them that we need to get that thing taken care of before the cold sets in, because then it won't fix correctly, we won't be able to fix it correctly.
Okay. With that, thank you.
You bet, I'll let you know.
Okay.
Oh, Robert.
Okay. Any other public input?
Yeah.
Good. Yeah.
One is, we need to change the venue for this meeting. This room is too small. And for us to expect to continue public meetings here when we had an attendance of 20 or 40 when we were on remote access. And in addition, why can't, and especially if we're gonna continue in a restricted venue as this, why aren't we going forward with opening up the Google Meet to public?
The Google Meet is actually opened up to the public.
It is?
Yeah.
I know that last time George, you accessed it.
It's accessible. You just have to know the way, how to get into there.
That's not on our agenda, and I don't think it's on the web either.
It's on the web. It's pretty self-explanatory too. It says click on this link. This is for the Google Meet, and then there's the YouTube one. The image is for the YouTube. The one right below it has the Google Meet.
Okay, and so the participation through that, would we be able to see it?
Yeah, no one joined. And you've averaged about 19 viewers on the YouTube.
Yeah, so again, to be quite honest with you, I didn't know how to get on. I had to contact Mr. Arambula, and he had to show me where to go in order to get on the Google link, but it is on the website, and
How far down?
it's not that far down, but again, without knowing where to go, it's kind of hard. It is, and I think that's just my personal experience.
It should be posted on the agenda. It's posted, the Google Meet?
No, the YouTube one.
No, I'm talking about the Google Meet.
Yeah.
There should be a link to where you can click on, and you can view all this live. Yeah.
So it's not the telephone one, it's the Google Meet.
The link is there, but again, you need to know where to go to get it.
Yeah, but if we list it on the agenda, that is a much more, it's a better good faith there.
Yeah, so on our, I'll present, so I'll show you on the, so right here on the right hand side, I had to put this information for the online registration, but the board meeting is right there. So the image, click on the image to access the YouTube live link for public viewing. And then right here is the CCS Board of Education. That's the link to get directly into it.
Where is it? Okay, right there?
Okay.
That's all you need to do is click on it?
Yes.
Yeah, and you have to log in with your personal email.
Right.
But most people don't want to do that.
Oh, we had a lot of people doing it before.
Yeah.
So,
Not very, there's not really moving on. Or calling in.
Can you put an icon like you have for the YouTube, so that people can see it and, or switch it, put the Google, Meet under the.
I can add one,
icon?
I can add one for you.
Cool.
Okay. Anything else? Public input? Okay. Entertain a motion to go into executive session. Motion by Mr. Cordova, second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Gomez.
Point of order, we bring up an objection because it does not have a satisfactory, description of the item that we're going to discuss.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, we have a motion and a second. On the point of order, I'll take a roll call vote. Mr. Guadiana?
No.
Mr. Gomez?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Mr. Cordova?
Yes.
We're in closed.
Thank you.
Okay. Entertain a motion to come back to open meeting.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Cordova, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Gomez. Take a roll call vote. Mr. Guadiana.
Aye.
Mr. Gomez.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Mr. Cordova.
Yes.
We're back in open. We went into executive session at 7:31 to discuss limited student identifiable information. And now it is 7:51. When we came back, no action was taken at that time. And since our agenda doesn't have action item to adjourn, we will recess our meeting until August 9th, when our next board meeting is. Okay, we're in recess. Vamos por los papeles.
Yeah, actualmente sí.
Okay.